Night Watchman. How you doing, buddy?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. How was your week?
Great week.
I think AI actually showed a photograph of you at Columbia. Were you there?
I was not there, but
Oh, you're
yeah,
telling me that was a deep fake. Is that correct?
very deep, very deep.
well. Having said that, we need to then talk about some AI. What do you think, man?
Let's do it. So
All right.
who you got?
Well, you know what? First up in the queue is actually a veteran of Soul Lounge Primetime. Back then, you know what? This guy came on Soul Lounge Primetime, and he was actually a grower of hemp and cannabis in the Hudson Valley.
hmm
I could only be talking about my man, John Gilstrap. Yeah, John.
Welcome
Good
back.
morning. Hello, guys. How's everything?
Good, man.
Hold on, let me give him this.
If anything, I always have fun working with you guys on your shows.
Yeah.
But thanks for all you do, though, bringing important issues and topics to the community. It's really indispensable, and I'm happy to be here with you.
We're happy to have you back.
Absolutely, John. Absolutely. So you know what, Night Watchman, another gentleman is someone who actually I didn't even know you knew him, but I did introduce you guys, and then suddenly, oh wow, they got a friendship that don't include me. Like, what's up with that? That could only be my man, who I really, really respect. That can only be Earl Thomason. Bring him out here, man. Earl, yes.
What's going on, fellas?
What's up, buddy?
Curtis, the friendship always includes you, man. You are the liaison.
See, I like this. And Night Watchman, that's right. We don't need you, but we'll keep you around, okay?
Glad to be here, fellas.
Thank you, bro. Thank you. And so, you know what? When we talk about AI, we often think about the engineers, but we don't necessarily talk about, let's say, the social scientists who look at the impact of AI on society. So we got to talk about that. We got to then, of course, bring up Cristian. Yes, Cristian Capotescu. Cristian, please help me with the last name. Go ahead.
No worries. Capotescu.
Capotescu.
There you go.
Thank you,
Super
my
easy.
brother. Thank you. Before we actually started down this road, we were talking about those other guys. And John, you said we need more than just the engineers. But John, we're going to bring out an engineer. Why don't we bring out Professor Brian A. Smith? Yeah, Brian. What's up, buddy? I think you're on mute.
You are right. Hey, how's it going? Great to be here.
Good. So before we get into this, I need to know a little bit of some background. So one of the people I'll start out with, of course, can only be you, John. You got to tell us about this journey into AI, man, because that's not how we first started this.
Sure. Well, there are some connections between the cannabis and AI space, but I started a company a year ago called NorthStarAI, which is a company that's focused on developing AI software tools to elevate voices of underrepresented communities and to help them with economic mobility challenges. And one of the ways we're doing that is focusing on AI software that helps mitigate bias in chatbots. And that's a pretty hot topic today. It wasn't so much back then when I started, but now it's gaining steam and people are understanding the impact that bias can have in these large language models and in chatbots. So I look at it as another social impact issue or category, much like cannabis was, and I still am involved in the cannabis space. But I'm always attracted to social impact causes, and the AI is certainly one of them. But I actually also built a chatbot for the New York State Cannabis MRTA.
Really?
Well. So I can share that link at some point down the road. But OpenAI will not let me put that into their marketplace. So I'm battling with them on that because they think it's not in keeping with their rules of engagement or communication to the marketplace. So
wow.
We'll see.
Okay, for sure. Because we certainly do know that OCM does have some challenges as we speak right now.
Yes, unfortunately.
Definitely. So, Earl, certainly I do know that you also have a day job. And I remember you telling me that you've really been getting Harlem Community Development Corporation to actually embrace technology. But I did not realize also you big into the AI space. So do tell, man.
Yeah. Once again, thanks for having me. And John, I'm inspired by your work. I didn't know you did all that, man. But yeah, I realized a few years ago that this AI thing wasn't going anywhere, and that if we wanted to keep up with it, we had to start learning more about it. And so when ChatGPT about almost 2 years ago really got big with, I think, GPT-3, I hopped on that and it changed everything for me. And so since then, I've been studying. I took a full stack developer course. I started learning about machine learning, and then realized how useful and how dangerous it can be. And so
Mm,
just keeping up with all the different updates and seeing how fast it's growing, I'm like, hey, we have to start figuring out how to implement this in government in a safe way, how to build policies around it. And so, Curtis, you and I have talked several times about how we can start utilizing it to service people better.
mm,
But I think, we got to catch up, man. As public administrators, we have to learn these tools. We have to figure out how to utilize them. We have to figure out how to make sure people aren't getting taken advantage by them. So that's where I'm at right now. Very much so a student, but also trying to figure out how to be very practical with the knowledge.
absolutely. Thank you for that, Earl. And Christian, certainly, I do know in the particular cohort that you're a part of, as you said, you are one of the few, let's say, non-engineers. So I have to. What brought you into that particular cohort with smart streetscapes?
Yeah, I'm really one of the people that couldn't be further away from technology than you guys. So I sometimes just feel like, what am I doing here when discussing these topics? But it's true. I myself, I'm a trained historian, and
Mhm.
I lead a center on trust research at Columbia. And as the term trust suggests, it's really a topic that social scientists have spent some time thinking about, but we're still not very far and good at in understanding what trust truly is and how to study it empirically. So we joined the engineering center at Columbia, CS3, the Center for Smart Streetscapes, last year as sort of advisors and consultants to try to help understand how to implement new urban technology, also AI-based technology, some of it at least, into the urban environment here in Harlem, and think about trust and public engagement and how to create exchange and dialogue with the community around AI and new technologies like sensors and street cameras.
Absolutely. Well, I guess one of the other things I'll go to now, then, of course, is you, Brian. Engineers are essential. They shouldn't have a bad rap at all. But having Christian there as maybe the moral compass or balance, could that be it? So, Brian, you got to tell me about your journey, especially with technology and AI, man.
Yeah, so Christian and I balance each other, as I like to say, we cancel each other out at the Center for Smart
That's a good one.
Streetscapes. Yeah, so I am a technology designer. I'm in computer science. I'm an assistant professor of computer science at Columbia. I direct the Computer Enabled Abilities Lab, and all the time I like to think about are we designing technology for the right purposes? Can we rethink our assumptions about technology? How can we make sure that the technologies that we create are actually helping people in the ways that really matter to them? So a lot of what I do is really understanding what matters to people. It's really getting to to people, understanding them, understanding their values, and then doing what we can on the engineering side to make sure that we're actually designing for their values rather than what engineers think are really cool or fancy or hypey.
Absolutely. So now, and I'll throw this out there. So John, certainly, getting underrepresented communities access to the technology is important, but also there's a risk. And so can you enumerate some of the risks that might be involved with this new technology? Oh, you're on mute.
I'm not the only one.
Yeah. there was an airplane flying by. No,
Oh,
we can do a whole segment on that. But you mentioned some of the risk involved.
yeah,
You said,
yeah, yes,
yeah.
correct.
I think Christian touched upon one major aspect is the trust factor, and if these chatbots and models are going to be widely accepted by everybody, which they claim they want it to be, you have to reflect everybody in
Hmm.
in the outputs, because I think maybe I'm not a social scientist, but as people see themselves reflected in media, they find it more credible and they find it more trustworthy, and therefore maybe there's a more wider adoption. So I think one of the challenges is to increase representation in these models so that people can trust them and adopt them. And there are all other kind of risks as well, where misinformation, bad information, or
Hmm.
no information at all, just creates distrust and in the marketplace and erodes credibility in the technology.
Absolutely, and certainly, Earl, you mentioned that getting our communities, especially with what we do in terms of small business development, all those particular things, I see benefits, man. But do you see negative results?
I mean, of course, of course. As you know, Curtis, we deal with a lot of people who are still learning the basics of computing and understanding how to utilize it for their businesses. And so when we have tools like AI come out, it helps them skip some steps, right? And say, okay, you don't have to focus on all these different areas that usually take up a lot of time, you might not like, and it might be pain points that you can't afford to pay somebody for. You can utilize these tools now to help you with your business. But I also see how easily, to John's point, the lack of representation can be when utilizing the tools. But also, and I'll bring this up, Curtis, hope you don't get mad at me.
No, go ahead.
But you sent me a text, or sent the group chat a text about last week with some videos of LeBron and I think a coach saying something, right?
Yes, yes, indeed,
Yeah.
yes.
And
Mhm.
you started sharing that information. And then,
Right.
because I knew AI, I looked at it
Right.
really quickly. I realized it was fake. But I
Wow.
believe you thought it was something that could be real, correct?
Yes, correct. You're absolutely
Right.
right.
And
Wow.
that is a very practical way, to John's point, that misinformation could be spread, that people's brands can be destroyed very quickly because
Yeah.
lies travel faster than the truth, right? And so
Mhm.
as we get into these election seasons and as people have to start making decisions about different things, we can easily be manipulated using AI. And so that's the balancing act, man. For me, is realizing how can we educate our community to understand these tools, and that they probably can't trust, now for sure can't trust everything they see on the internet. And then also, how can the government start to build that trust in very practical ways, whether it be putting blockchain on information so that we understand it's verified, or mandating that every platform has verified information on it.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Earl. And so, Night Watchman, I
Yeah, I want to.
apologize. Go
Yeah, I
ahead,
want to
buddy.
just kind of explore that
Hmm.
issue of trust, because and let's talk about the different, because there's different variations of AI that we're dealing with. But one of the problems is that number one, voices can be cloned very easily right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yes. Wow.
Images can be cloned and recreated easily.
Right.
Those images can be made to say whatever the voices say. So if you can
Mm-hmm.
clone someone's voice and you can clone someone's image, literally, no video can be trusted just on
Mm-hmm.
its face value. So we're going to have to come up with other mechanisms for verifying the source of things.
Mm-hmm.
But that's an issue. The other
Mm-hmm.
issue that we have is AI as we know it. A lot of it is going to disappear from us. And when I mean disappear, we're not going to know it's AI because we're just going to be interacting with it. And
Mm-hmm.
what's going on is that we know about ChatGPT, and Gemini is Google's version, and there's another one called Claude that are kind of the main, what they call LLMs, large language models. But those models are being imported into other programs. Some of the stuff that
Mm-hmm.
we already use, Microsoft has Copilot and Bing, and virtually any software that you might have been using now has an AI component. So the thing is that we're going to be interacting in ways where we're thinking we're talking to a human being, But we're really talking to an AI that's responding and algorithms, and it's getting better and better at having nuances in the voice. And so we're getting to a point where it's going to be hard to recognize when we're interacting with AI as opposed to interacting with a human being. And that's frightening. So I want to ask Cristian a little bit about your thoughts, since you've been studying trust, and how do we go forward in this era, knowing that this is on the horizon and it's only going to get, the AI is going to get better, so the trust factor is going to go down.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say from the perspective of historians and social scientists, the rapid emergence of AI and technologies like AI is not something that is entirely new to society, right? So think about the introduction of electricity, the introduction of the computer, the internet. We've seen disruptive technologies before. I think what is important is that we realize there is probably no silver bullet or one method to come to terms with how to design AI responsibly and how to create all of these safeguards that you've all touched on, but to see and to look at different strategies to accomplish that. And I think there are currently at least two main ways of how experts and governments and nonprofits are looking at it. And the first one is to think of AI as an engineering problem. So to sort of come up with verification methods, filters, mitigation strategies to ensure that malicious actors can't do too much damage, for instance, during elections, as Earl has pointed out, that we can mitigate for the spread of misinformation and disinformation, frankly. But that, to my mind, is sort of a whack-a-mole game, right? Because AI is going to evolve and we'll have to constantly keep up with new methods of mitigating. So certainly that's one way of trying to do it. But the problem with whack-a-mole is that it's a never-ending cycle, a never-ending game that we would have to play. Therefore, there's a second way of thinking about it. What if we train people, humans, citizens, to become better at understanding what AI does, how to read better, how to understand better how media and content is created? So to sort of create digital citizens for the 21st century that are capable and trained and skeptical when they engage content that is potentially created by AI. And I think a combination of these two is probably going to get us to a place where we can implement AI safely and responsibly in society.
Wow. Absolutely. And and Brian, certainly I've seen from the cohort some of the good stuff that you've done, especially with the assisted technology in just navigating the street. So you got to tell me about creating or utilization of technology that is of benefit to folks, and folks get to weigh in on that benefit.
Yeah, exactly. So just like building on what Cristian just said, I think there's a real opportunity for us to seize the moment and actually create AI that can be part of the solution, right? So Cristian mentioned education as a way of making sure that we're not always chasing the next AI revolution or the next AI trend, but we're actually proactive in helping people make their own decisions. AI could actually help with education. And that's, I think, where we, as on the engineering side, can actually really pitch in. So some of the work that I've been doing with the Center for Smart Streetscapes that Cristian and I are both part of, has been around helping people who are blind actually navigate the city, and using by repurposing existing street cameras. To actually give blind people turn-by-turn navigation, and actually help them learn about their surroundings and discover places in a very self-directed way that they wouldn't have known about before if they didn't have the freedom to explore, like in a way that sighted people take for granted. So I think there's a great opportunity for AI to help with the solution as well. And it reminds me of a quote, an interesting quote by a French cultural theorist named Paul Virilio, who said, when you invent the ship, you also invent the shipwreck. And when you invent a plane, when the airplane was invented, you also invented plane crashes.
Wow.
Every time a new technology is created, the negative consequences of that technology are also created. And so it's something for us, even on the invention side, to think about, well, how can we actually invent or create ways of actually empowering people to deal with the associated negative consequences?
Wow. So John, always unintended consequences, or do we intend those consequences?
Wow, that's a deeply philosophical question, I think. But if I'm understanding you correctly, it's a combination of both. But I think by not thinking of what Cristian and Brian are saying early on up front, you are by not engaging that early on, you are creating the shipwreck or the plane wreck down the road, right? I always where I come from, I look at how do these language models and bots get started from begin with. All the information was scraped from Wikipedia and all the websites and public information, and it was curated by a narrow profile group of folks in Silicon Valley, and from my opinion, who are largely 25 to 45 years old. They're probably not people of color. They're single. They're able-bodied, and they all have PhDs. So that's the framework from whence folks are developing these things. So that leaves out a whole bunch of other people. So if you're a senior citizen and you're going to the language model to find information that can help you, you're not going to get a whole lot there. If you are a married couple, theoretically, you're not going to get a whole lot. So can you say that's unintentional? But I don't understand why. If there were more folks in the room like Brian early on, you wouldn't have the train wrecks and the plane wrecks. So that's an interesting question to ponder.
Well, hold it. But John, come on. Creating the technology, there ultimately will, not intended, but there ultimately will be some wrecks, unintended consequences.
Absolutely. But we went through this already with Web 2.0 and maybe even Web 3.0. I forget which web we're at now, but we should have known that. But also now the horse is out of the gate, and it's really going to be hard to put it back, to put the genie, sorry for all the turns of phrases, but it's going to be hard to put the genie back in the bottle. And fortunately, we're still in an early stage in this evolution, and now is really the time to to put a foot down and really get stuff going in the right direction.
Gotcha. Earl, you've heard the discussion. Give me some of your thoughts, man.
No, I think everybody's hitting it on the head. Yeah, I think it's an interesting space to be in. History repeats itself, so I think there will be a lot of use cases that are harmful. Yeah, I got to lean towards the government angle a lot because that's where we are, and I see how it can help us. But I also see our community not being prepared for it, and it's actually really scary. My mother-in-law stays with us. She's actually right here.
Nice.
And I'm helping her with Social Security. And she barely knows how to actually engage with the technology on the computer. And so, she's getting scams, but spam on her phone from all these different people that I think are AI now. And it's picking up, right? But she doesn't know the clues that I know to say, oh, don't even respond to that. Don't even text them back. And it's getting smarter and smarter. I don't know if you guys saw that they had an ad somewhere where you called the number and you called and it was AI and you were talking to AI. And more importantly, actually, OpenAI had a spring update on Monday, and that was followed by Google I/O. And both of them, showed how quick AI has grown to sound like us. They put the nuances and
Wow.
the way we kind of trip up and have pauses. It sounds very realistic, and that's what we are now. But our community is not there, and so I think, to everyone's point, we have to work really hard and diligently to let everybody know these things exist. Even if you're against it, understand the tools so that you know what's possible and you're not taken advantage of. I myself, I and this is not a good practice, but I literally pay for the pro. I pay for the pro features for all these platforms like HeyGen, Opus Pro, several other things, just so I can see, okay, what is actually possible. And from being on HeyGen alone, I now know not to trust anything, because I know with $20 a month, I can clone somebody, have a digital clone, take their voice, to Bob's point, and literally make whatever transcript I want and make them say whatever. And so because of all of that, we have to work really hard to make sure that people know these things exist and how they are used against us.
Oh my God! Yeah, this is some scary stuff, man. Scary stuff, Earl. I mean, Cristian, come on. How the heck are you going to get trust back with stuff like that out there, man? Come on.
Yeah, I know. It's a never-ending problem, I think, that we're facing, and I think John and Earl already said everything we need to think about, which is that AI has been so far largely been developed, designed, and introduced top-down by a handful of Silicon Valley companies. And as John already said, who are the people that designed these technologies and that we're now using on our smartphones? It's certainly not a representative sample of society, which creates the kinds of biases and unintended consequences that I think John and Earl have pointed at. But that is really a problem when new technologies introduce not bottom up but top down, and when in fact the public, the intended user, the people on the street are not consulted and integrated and implemented in the process of designing a technology. And I think building trust would have to minimally account for exactly that sort of social issue or social dynamics issue, that if you want to build trust, you have to bring everyone on board, or at least enough people on board early on. Timing, sequencing, and duration is very important to building trust. So if you implement a technology and then only at the end realize that, wait a second, we need to consult the public, that just entirely violates our sense of how trust is built. So I think we're still in a place, timing wise, where we can build that trust with the public if we think about ways to design AI more with the public in mind. Maybe come up with something like a citizen AI that can help people understand how AI operates, how it can be built. If communities get a voice and a say in defining how AI is used and implemented. But we'll have to act quickly, because this window of opportunity is closing, and we are still in a place where we can do this. But I'm really worried that we're not doing enough.
Wow! Thank you for that, Cristian. Go ahead.
I think
Go ahead, Night Watchman.
we also have to look at the companies that are leading the development, and I want to go back to the context that Brian and Cristian created about going back and looking at how the past we've had disruptive technologies that come in, and there are benefits and problems that come in with it. But a lot of times in the past, the people who are pushing a new technology are only pushing the benefit, but they don't tell you about the downside. I'm going to give a specific example that I think about a lot. Some of us are old enough to remember when we had leaded gasoline. But a lot of people don't know why we don't have leaded gasoline anymore. And there was a scientist who was measuring the lead levels in basically in all animals, and started to realize that the gas that we having was literally poisoning every mammal on the planet.
Wow.
And he had to go again, and as soon as he started talking about it, they cut all his funding. So he literally had to go for years pushing this narrative, trying to get people in Washington to listen to him. And finally, he had enough data to support it that people realized that if we keep going and kept putting lead in the air, we'd all basically be dying of lead poisoning by now. Every animal, every person. So the thing is that you can't always trust the people who are bringing it to you. They'll give you the benefits, but they're not going to necessarily give you the downside. So we have to be very vigilant. And I agree with what Earl said, is that we have to look at our government to monitor this thing, but we have to also bring them up to speed. So it's we've got to do this thing on multiple fronts. You know, we've got to teach our governments, our leaders, and we have to teach our aunties and our grandmothers to understand that they can't always trust things. And I think about some of the scams we've already heard about, where they will clone a young person's voice and then send them the message to their grandmother saying, "Hey, you know, I'm stuck in jail and I need somebody. You know, I need you to send me $2,000." And this is a real thing that's already happened. So you know, and the technology is getting better, which means the problem is getting worse.
That is true. Brian, I mean, you know, okay, let me even back up, because I do remember in terms of facial recognition technology at, let's say, airports and other, but apparently there had been a recall, or there was definitely an alert done because it was imperfect, that a lot of Black and brown folks were being detained and harassed because the tech, and maybe this gets back to, as you said, John and Cristian, the developers of said technology. Cristian, comments, man.
Yeah, so I think that's a real problem, and I think it's actually making me think that we should probably everyone should be holding should be holding creators more, or developers more, accountable for actually revealing who is behind the creation of the technologies, right?
Behind the curtain, the whiz, huh?
Exactly, yeah. And I think, because it is true that, like, you know, I also believe that government needs to play a heavier hand here, but that government also, like a lot of folks in government themselves, don't really understand how these technologies work. I think, you know, one of the only ways that we could solve this dilemma is for you know, every new model, every new face recognition technology, every new LLM, large language model, to actually be upfront and transparent about, like, who's on the team and what is their representation.
Gotcha.
You know, maybe we could even have policies that encourage these technologies to, like, openly advertise that to users, along with, like, how to use the tool.
Gotcha. Night Watchman, I'm looking in the queue. Am I seeing something? You have some presentation we should know about?
Yeah, we were talking about the cloning of the voice. I can actually show. We can actually show, you know, directly how that works. So this is 11 Labs, and this is speech synthesis. And let's see. I don't know if you can guys. Okay, so it's I've already got something in here that basically says you're listening to Soul Lounge Primetime on WHCR with DJ Leroy and the Night Watchman. And I have a voice clone.
You're listening to Soul Lounge Primetime on WHCR with DJ Leroy and the Night Watchman.
So that's not me. That's not me. Okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, go ahead.
But it could be you. I could literally clone your voice, and we can do that.
Okay.
And so it changes the dynamic of a lot of things. Now I could add to it. We're talking about AI.
Yes.
And then I hit generate speech.
Okay. You're listening to Soul Lounge Primetime on WHCR with DJ Leroy and the Night Watchman. We're talking about AI.
So it's literally that quickly, and I can change the voice. We can change it instead of, you know, let's try Natasha. And we regenerate it.
Okay.
You're listening to Soul Lounge Primetime on WHCR with DJ Leroy and the Night Watchman. We're talking about AI.
So this, it's a breakthrough from a production standpoint. You can literally write a script and instead of having to have someone read it in real time, you can literally press a button and you know, if I wanted to do this and save myself the time of recording, I can actually clone my voice. I have not cloned my voice yet because I'm not comfortable with that yet. But
Okay.
Can I hop in, Bob?
Go
yeah,
ahead.
please
Go ahead,
do.
Earl.
I thought about the same thing because I'm also a creator, but don't clone your voice. If you read the legal jargon, they can actually utilize that for their own liking. So selling data will be selling our voices and our liking moving forward. So that's why I'm saying government has to get in place first so that we are protected before we start making these moves, because it does make your life a lot easier. And it's actually going to be interesting watching creators hop in and see how they function with it, because there's a platform called Suno.ai, I believe, or Suno. You can literally create music that's actually really good through prompts right now.
Wow.
Right.
Really good
original
music.
Yeah, original.
Right. Original music. And they just dropped V3 of it, and it's, you know, it's actually mind blowing. And I have friends who producers, and I'm sitting here scared to talk to them about it. So I'm like, you have to figure it out, because it's not the same process. But yeah, these tools can be helpful, but don't clone your voice, man. Not yet.
Yeah.
But you know, there's a
Uh,
creepy allocation use of this, and I think I saw it on a Black Mirror episode once. Let's say you have a deceased relative and you have their voice. You can actually take this technology and put that deceased relative's voice to it, and you can have a
Wow.
conversation with your deceased husband or grandmother, and stuff
Oof.
like that. And
Well,
that could be helpful for some, but it could also be kind of
Yeah.
creepy for
but
others.
to
So
go a
cr-
step further with it, you can actually train the AI on, let's say that person was a writer, or you have recordings of them, and you push all that stuff into the AI to train the context. You could start to have that conversation, and the conversation would have some merit because it would literally be based on a lot of the person's actual words and thoughts that they've expressed. So that's the direction that things are going. And it's important for us to also understand, in terms of our interaction with AI, that okay, so we have these large language models that have been trained on all this information, as John mentioned earlier, but we can also bring in contextual information of our own. And so each of these LLMs have what they call a context window, which is just basically, you know, think about it as a workspace where you can put books, you can put videos, and you can use that as the source of information for the response that you want to get. So those are the ways that we actually can use it to forward ourselves. And there is an upside to it. We've been talking a lot about the downside, but the upside is, how do we train ourselves to teach ourselves quicker? You know, because what AI does is it gives us access to all the human curated information in the world. And so how do we use AI to you know, skip the, you know, the college process and just say, hey, I want to learn about X, and have, you know, develop a working relationship with the AI where the AI will teach you, or even design your own personal course for you on how to learn to do something. So those are some of the ideas about where AI can actually, on an individual basis or on a business basis, help us, you know, in our own lives, take a leap forward.
Yes, indeed. Cristian, comments on that, because having AI to teach us. I mean, in your course, have you utilized that strategy?
I haven't utilized the strategy myself, but I've heard colleagues who are very much in the process of trying to figure out, and I think we're all trying to currently figure out how to respond to AI, especially in the classroom. But I think what all of this points to is really that the introduction of AI will profoundly reshape how we work, how we study, how we learn, how we live, how we interact with each other, and importantly, also how we interact with the AI itself, right? So we shouldn't think of it just as a system that is out there, but as a new non-human social actor that will shape us as humans too, right? If you start talking to deceased relatives, how will that shape us and our psychology and the way we think about the world? And I don't think we really know yet. And I think we're really very much at the beginning of trying to understand how even to study this sort of human AI interaction dynamic, and to get to this place where we look at a future where the technology can be productive and be meaningfully integrated in our social lives, but also have the necessary guardrails and the regulations behind them, and also the understanding by users that this is in fact not a real human they are interacting with, but really artificial intelligence. And I think the distinctions will blur over time more and more. But we are all really scrambling at the moment and trying to understand how to come to terms with these questions.
Absolutely, and certainly all of us are, I guess, students of science fiction. We certainly do know we've never seen a thing where AI is amongst us, and when it becomes aware, that's it for the human race, so to speak. So Brian, I know you're one of these also science fiction nerds that you love that stuff too. So,
oh yeah.
So consciousness and AI are very different, correct? For now.
Very different. Yeah, very different for now, right? Like AI works by understanding patterns. Patterns and data, any kind of corpus of text and literature, as the Night Watchman mentioned, the context window, there are patterns behind that, and AI uses those patterns to generate new text or to generate new music or to generate new speech. That's it. So those patterns, you know, from a functional perspective, that's it. But from a larger perspective, actually, AI is almost like a magnifying glass that that reveals how people actually think and behave.
Wow.
The bias that we're seeing in AI data is because people have written a lot of biased things, and that's what's being parroted back and used as a pattern to generate new content.
Gotcha.
So I think that with, you know, the way that AI works, it's really important, you know, as part of you know, one of the things that we should be thinking about is that who we want to be as people, like to keep generating this type of stuff.
Yes, I got you. And certainly, like I said with John, when we were talking about some of that music, man. So we talk about, you know, the benefits. That's some great stuff, but that then means that the creative process for humans, is that going to be lost, man? What's going to happen?
You know, that's part of the larger discussion of whether AI is going to take jobs away and displace people. There may be some of that, but I think is you have to, and this is where the education comes in, is just another tremendous tool for a human being to be creative. Even in the language model area, something called humans in the loop is an important tool, because you still have to check the output from the AI to make sure that it's on the right track. In the sense of in the area of music, I think it's just an area that can enhance creativity should you choose to use it. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing.
Okay. So Earl, your music friends, they should not fear, but yet
they should fear.
No, they should they should be very afraid. If they don't start learning how to use these tools, they should be afraid. Especially because you can monetize this stuff. Like if you pay for that Suno AI, you actually have the rights for it, so you can put it on YouTube and make the money from it. So now it takes seconds to create an album if you have the air, which I think to John's point is the key. Is like creatives are still needed because we know what people would want, or we know what we want to create. So you still are needed, but the tool can help you get through the process a lot quicker, so you can produce more. And that might cause saturation a little bit depending on how much people consume. But I think what I believe Cristian said is an interesting point, because it's like, who do we want to become? And I think about Bumble, right? Bumble looks at dating in the future to be an AI, your AI that you've trained to know what you want, be on their platform to date somebody else's AI. So it goes through all the motions for you rather than you going and swiping right on everybody for, months at a time. But it's like, all right, so now that's a useful thing to do. but then it also changed the way you engage with that platform. And I think that's the same argument across all these different tools. Like, how do we want to actually engage, and how do we protect that level of engagement? But then also, how do we utilize it to save us some time, some energy, and some emotional toll? So yeah, it's going to be based on the user. But I think a lot of people, as I think we all can agree, that humans like to take the easy way out a lot, and that can get us to a point of being very dependent on AI and falling in love with the tools. And then that's when it's like, all right, you're so dependent, it can be leveraged against you.
Wow, got you. Well, okay, I got to say, okay, healthcare improvement, educational enhancement, economic growth, okay, public safety. So these are all beautiful benefits to society, Cristian. And even, in the cohort, I've even said, I don't care if cameras are on me. The only thing you're going to see me is maybe blowing my nose, scratching my butt. What do I have to fear? Do tell, man.
That's a dangerous and naive.
Wow.
That's exactly what you have to fear.
Exactly.
TMI.
Okay, good. Cristian, you heard me. I'm in the minority here, so help me out, or throw me under the bus further. Go ahead. Let me hear.
No, absolutely. I think I would fear the most about it becoming a new gold rush that makes us blind to the consequences that are potentially down the line. And I think we've seen it, and we are in this moment where companies around the world, universities, nonprofits, governments rush into the implementation and adoption of AI, knowing that this technology at this moment is not very reliable, and that there are that it hallucinates, that it has inherently biased sort of mechanisms to reproduce existing biases.
Got
So
it.
that's a bit of my concern. I think any technology, as Brian already said, is always built with the sort of the positives and negatives already in it, right? So there's no technology that will ever only display and exhibit positive consequences and effects. But I think if there is too much techno-utopianism behind it that makes us blind, truly blind and naive towards it, I think that's where we get into a place that is dangerous. And I don't think we are there, but I think we always have to be sort of resistant against these kind of tendencies to rush too quickly into a technology and not take a second to really sit down and think about, well, how do we actually build the right policies, the right guardrails? How do we revamp education in high schools and in college that equips the next generation of citizens to really be good stewards of this technology? And it can't just be something that engineers and data scientists think about. It really has to be your historian who has to get the tools and equip themselves with the tools to understand how the technology operates, at least at a basic level, and to then really think deeply about it. And I include myself in this group, right? I'm a historian, and I'm not trained by my profession to really understand how AI operates. So how can we train the next generation of historians to be better learners and thinkers around this technology? And that's really a big challenge that I'm actually really I'd be excited to hear what you all think about. Well, how do we train actually high school students on these questions? Can we even train them?
Can I piggyback on something?
Yeah. Hold on a second. Okay. Yes. Go ahead, John.
It's just something Cristian brings up was very important, and you can't leave out the influence of Wall Street, because how the investor community or the stock market or whatever works is, hey, let's just get revenues up and running. Let's get this product out of the door. We need to just generate market share, and damn everything else. We need to get to a market cap of X so we can justify our return. So when you're in that kind of and you need the money from the Wall Street to develop your technology. When you're in that kind of environment, you're not going to talk to all the stakeholders that you really should have talked to, the regulatory community, the your ultimate customer, the content community. Your job is to just get that product out the door. So you've seen a lot of these models, they haven't been fully tested. They haven't taken the car around the block to make sure, you know, the wheels don't fall off. And that's what we have here. We have a really good model of things, but the rush to get the product out means you have to leave, you know, shorten your track and not talk to everybody. And that's where we are. That's how it's part of the reason why we're here too. So
absolutely.
I also think that the biggest danger in AI is not, you know, the Skynet. You know, the AI
Earth
goes
is falling,
rogue and decides that I don't need humans anymore. You know, that's scary. But the real truth is that the biggest danger to AI is people using it, you know,
for
badly.
nefarious reasons. Okay.
Yeah, and we have to understand that there are people behind this AI, and in terms of you know, bad actors and surveillance and things like that. You know, there's one AI giant that is very kind of shadowy, so to speak. We know about Google. We know about OpenAI. We know about Anthropic, which is Claude, and they're with Amazon. We know about Meta. We don't talk that much about Palantir, you know, but Palantir.
Who are they?
So Peter Thiel is a billionaire. He came out of PayPal along with Elon Musk, and Peter Thiel and Elon were actually original founders of OpenAI. But Peter Thiel has a company that provides services to government and law enforcement, and so a lot of the surveillance and all that, you know, the recognition, facial recognition stuff. They have that, and quietly they're very tied in with all different kinds of military and law enforcement. And they've got just as much technology, I think, as everybody, but they're not pushing themselves out as an AI giant. But believe me, that's the kind of company that would use it in ways that we might not all agree with. So we have to look. We have to kind of keep our eyes on everybody in this space and see how it develops, and make sure that we develop guardrails and the things that John is talking about is in making sure that the context of how these things are being trained are actually address everyone's and not just a narrow perspective of the people who are developing it.
Gotcha. Yes. Brian, comments?
Yeah, I think this point about how education and the next generation, and how do we get, you know, even the next generation of historians and everyone else who can pay $20 a month to generate deep fakes, right? Their own deep fakes. How do we get them to learn better? It's a problem. It's becoming more and more of a problem because a lot of grade school teachers don't themselves have computer science or AI education.
Wow.
And even before ChatGPT and other AI models became really large and popular, just getting high school students equipped with basic computer science knowledge was already a huge challenge. And so what I think that we're going to be seeing in, you know, the 5 to 10 years ahead is a move towards some, let's say, shared classes where we don't necessarily, or at least in the beginning, we don't necessarily have teachers who are super well versed in computer science at every single high school, but we do have some larger online courses that high schoolers can take or, you know, even have to take along with their chemistry and calculus and things like that, so that we can actually have a common denominator of CS education and AI education going out of high school.
Gotcha.
And I think a lot of that education doesn't even need to be technical. It's almost like statistics. You don't need to, you know, learn the ins and outs of stochastic modeling to understand basic probability or basic odds. I think we're going to be seeing new ways of teaching AI and AI usage and possibility more intuitively as well.
Wow. Okay. So don't take that, Brian, to Las Vegas. They may throw you out. But having said that, Night Watchman, we are now in, as we say, the lightning round.
Absolutely.
So you know what, John, we'll start with you and go around and give us some closing thoughts. Also, if they want to find out about John Gilstrap, where do they go? Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry, you can go to our website, which is www.thenorthstarai.com, and it talks about our work in bias mitigation software and education platforms and such.
Nice. Okay. Thank you for that, John. Earl, what about you, buddy?
Yeah, man. Thanks again, fellas, for having me. As I said, I work with Curtis, so you can find me with him at ACDC. On the side, I am a creator that is utilizing these tools to make my creative process a lot easier. And you can find those works on Dempsey.Productions. And I just want to say that the teaching element is really important. And I think that is a angle that we have to dive into more, especially with cybersecurity. I think that is something I think we can't just allow our next generation not to understand.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Earl. Cristian, what you got for us?
All right. Well, it was a pleasure being with you all here, and really an honor to have so many great minds on this conversation. You can find us at this cute name, the Collaboratory.org. If you want to learn more about trust and what is trust, how to study trust, and get in touch with us. We would love to hear from you and be on this journey together of studying all the things about trust.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And Brian, do tell.
Yeah, my takeaway is if you're curious about AI, play with it yourself. It's not that hard. I'm actually really inspired by Earl. He mentioned he's a student, and in just a couple years already can have conversations like this and really understands a lot of the machine learning and stuff behind it. It's not as hard as one might think to just get their hands dirty. And if you'd like to stay in touch or keep in touch, my website, my lab's website is ceal.cs.columbia.edu.
Excellent. Night Watchman, I am really, really gratified that you are indeed not a bot, that you are the real deal. So this is...
At this moment, I'm still not a bot. That's correct. Yes. But, you never know. This technology moves quickly,
It really does.
But I echo what Brian is saying. I definitely recommend that people, you might want to try, spending the $20 a month to get ChatGPT or Gemini and try these models out. Also, there's one called Claude.ai, CLAUDE. That's also a free model that you can get. It's very competitive with ChatGPT. And so I would suggest that you try more than one, even if you're trying the free version, so you can see the differences between them and not get stuck on any one platform, because I think the more you understand the differences, the more you can navigate and learn how to use this groundbreaking technology.
Excellent. And Night Watchman, tell me that all of these guys right here, they will be invited back to the cookout, or what?
To the AI cookout? Are we going to have AI do the barbecuing?
No,
I think we want to leave that in the human hands.
So what have they been listening to, man? Talk to me.
Soul Lounge Primetime on WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem. Also live streaming on YouTube and Facebook, and also on your favorite podcast platforms. You can always find us on Monday night, 7 o'clock on the radio, and 8 o'clock live streaming on YouTube and Facebook. Thanks a lot, and please join us again next Monday when you're going to find even more interesting conversation. So interesting, we don't even know what it is yet.
What is it? Guys, this has been an absolute pleasure, guys. You will be coming back, okay? When AI takes over our jobs. Take care, y'all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
All right, fellas.